Hello, everyone. I'm back. I've been gone for a few days. This is Katrina McHide on Tim and Katrina McHide's YouTube channel. And I'm back to share some more things that are happening in my life and how it applies to living on what we call on the narrow path, which is trying to live a better way for Jehovah, for God, the Father, and live a good life. I am going to give you a little update and a little information today because I recognize that there may be some things that you're not aware of that you can use on YouTube here to get started so that when you come, you'll be able to know when I'm on live, for instance. I'm realizing we're all learning. I'm even learning how to use YouTube better. And of course, they change the way they do things at times. So we one there's a couple things that you can be aware of is there's actually a new program called Community, and you'll see that in the list of things that you can go to. You can see um, your subscriptions, you can see channels and all kinds of things on the labels and stuff that's on your YouTube channel, and one of them is called Community. And the cool thing about Community is that I can give all of you a message at once about whatever's coming up, like an upcoming event. Like for instance, I just did a premiere today with somebody, and I am going to decide when to actually put that up for us to view together. So that's coming. I'm really excited. My girlfriend Karna and I sat down and talked about some things that we've been learning on how to walk on the narrow path better, and it was wonderful. We had a great time talking about what our life is like and what's going on and how it applies to living better. So that I'm really excited, and so I can put that down there. And you can comment not only about what I'm saying, but it is a community. You can comment about what other people are saying as well. So for those of you that are looking for community, we can start getting our community started here. It's a brand new program, and if you want to be a part of being a part of that community and chatting, it's sort of it's not quite as good as Facebook, obviously, but where you can share a ton of different things. I think you can share some stuff, but it's to be able to leave comments back and forth. So if you want to get to know the other people that come to this site and have subscribed to the other people here and get to know other people, you're welcome to use that. Also, you obviously can subscribe to this channel. What subscribing to the channel does is it helps you to be able to find me again easy. So you can click on the subscribe button that's underneath this video. When we're done being live, if you go back to it, you'll see a subscribe button underneath there, and you can push that and it will make it in your subscriptions list so you can find if you want to come back. Also, there's a bell next to it, and that bell, if you push that bell next to it, it helps give you notifications when I'm doing something live, when I've put something up new, or anything else that I've maybe probably put in comments, or I'm sorry, in the community, so that you can keep up. And I will say, you can also with that go into your settings and change what kind of notifications you want and how much notifications that you want. So you may want to go in there and do that as well, because sometimes I'll do a set of live vlogs, 6 days in a row, and sometimes that's overwhelming for people. Other people love it because it gives them encouragement every day, and other people go, this is just way too much. So you can go ahead and adjust what works for you. So those are some of the things that you can consider with adjusting YouTube to work better for you. And so I wanted to give you those ideas to be able to look at, and feel free to also let me know what's working and not working for you as we learn new things that are going on with YouTube. So I have been doing things live, as you see, and it seems to be really great because people are showing up and leaving comments, and we're enjoying one another. And I love having the community and people asking questions as I go along and talk about things. So what is happening in the McHide house? I will give you an update. So Tim finally got a newsletter done. As many of you may know, I know that those of you that don't know, my husband Tim McHyde, most of you do actually. He puts out newsletters, and he doesn't do them as often any longer because he's really being slow and thoughtful and just praying on what to do. And this one was, I believe, over 7,000 words, and he really put a lot of time and effort into it. If you would like free newsletters to learn about Bible prophecy and also how to live for Father in the end times, then you're welcome to go to escapeallthesethings.com and subscribe to free newsletters, and you can receive those. So you're welcome to join us there as well. And the updates will come to you, and we also update how many more videos Katrina has done that you can check out as well during that, when he actually does get out a newsletter. So you're welcome to do that and join us there. So the other thing that's been happening, thankfully, after getting that out, it's been about a month before since he got a newsletter out. That's going really good, and we're getting a lot of positive feedbacks with that. And now I also have tried to change from recording in my kitchen late at night, because I'm in Germany, to setting up an office. I had an office upstairs, and it's right next to our bedroom. So it wasn't working so well for me to be up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and doing vlog posts in my office, since everybody's sleeping, like, with a wall between us, and my voice is a strong voice. I think everybody would agree with that. So it travels a bit. So we moved to a different room. I have a different room here, and as you can tell, the lighting's different, and I'm sitting on a couch and everything, and it's more comfortable for sure. I'm enjoying it, but I just set it up. I set it up in order to be able to do the premiere, the interview I did with my girlfriend that I'll be putting up, but I'm seeing if it'll work out. And right now the lighting is kind of odd, so you should see this. Actually, I'll show it to you, because it's not beautiful, but it's fun to see people's lives and what we do to try to pull things together. So this is what it looks like in the office right now. Watch your eyes. I probably, the lights are gonna kind of probably be bold, but you can see I put my desk in here, or there's a desk there and some lights. There you go. There's a little tour of this little office area that I'm trying to make. And so I just set this up, the couch up with a towel, and put some butterflies that I had in my other office up, because I thought I love butterflies. I'm a butterfly person. So you can see I'm trying to make these posts easier. You'll also notice that I have, for the last about 3 weeks, I've been doing it in landscape mode instead of in portrait mode. So I had just a few people comment that they would prefer landscape mode, where it fills your whole screen to see all of me, and you'll also see that actually you can't see the full part of me as much anymore in landscape mode. There's not much I can do about that, but I'm trying to make these at least more visibly appeasing, so that we hear more about what I'm speaking about, which I think is way more important than the way things look. But also, I know that there can be distractions and other things that keep us from being able to, interact in a way that feels, just comfortable and calm. So if you have any other ideas, I'm working on a shoestring budget. I'm sure many of you understand shoestring budgets as well, but I'll try to make things a little bit better as I can. So that's what I'm doing. And now I'm going to get into my topic for tonight. And tonight, I wrote this down actually yesterday when we were having a meeting with a group of people, and I had recognized something that I had said that I wanted to pay attention to myself. It just felt like it was time for me to evaluate this. I wrote it down as loving acts for selfish reasons. I recognized that many of us, I would venture to say probably all of us, have done it at one time or another, or maybe still do, I know that I do, is do loving things, and everybody thinks they're so loving and wonderful. But inside, it's not purely for the love of Father or the love of others. It's just for selfish reasons. And it looks good to everyone else, but it's not necessarily pure love. It's maybe partial love. And so, I think that we're always learning and growing on how to do that. So I don't think it always works out that we do it everything perfectly. And the great thing is we can practice, and that's just okay. It's okay to not get it right all the time. The idea is to at least be thought, have a thought, and to go slow and try to do better and better as we go along. So I was thinking about it, and I realized that I had some things that I'm not fully in full love myself in. And one of them was, for instance, today, sometimes you get overwhelmed with taking care, being a caretaker, and you need a break. And I was trying to uh, not do some things and just have my husband do them so that I could get a break, so I could get some other stuff done. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and we all have to do that. But if it's not with the concept of trying to understand not only our limitations, but try to balance out what's loving for everyone else, including ourselves, and doing what we're doing and making the decisions for the love of God, we have room for improvement. Doesn't mean you're bad and you're terrible. It just means that you need to grow in how to do that, because it is quite of a juggling act when you've got a life, right? For instance, when you have children and they're screaming in the middle of the store, I don't know. I mean, I have had 2 kids. I've raised 2 kids. I feel like I still have kids sometimes, and those type of situations, it's like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Part of it is the selfishness. I just need them to be quiet. What do I do to get them quiet, right? Because they're hurting my ears. They're being annoying. They're hurting other people's ears, and sometimes we don't think about the child who is acting up and what's going on for them, and we might be embarrassed. So there's all these juggling acts we do, and then of course you're not thinking of Father at that moment. You're not thinking of God many times. You're saying, oh God, help me, right? It's more in a sarcastic way, and in desperation more than in truth. And then you cry afterwards and say, God, you gotta help me, because I was just overwhelmed. So these things naturally happen, and we sort of have to relax and be willing to evaluate it and ask Father to help us to get stronger in love as we go along. I think sometimes we can get really perfectionistic, and also it can be scary to admit that we're not fully there yet. And I always love to share that, this is something that you practice to get better at. It's not something you know right away. And Father knew we were going to be children all the time, and unless you become as little children, you can't enter the kingdom. So recognize that you just always be teachable. Recognize you're not going to get it right, and it's okay. And with time, you'll get better. I like to equate it with, when you first get crayons and you're told how to do it, you've got your motor skills that aren't quite right, and you can't quite get in the lines, and they have to teach you how to hold that crayon right, and learn how to, not use it to actually eat it, or, whap somebody else over the head with it, or whatever. Melt it on something. So just as little children are learning how to do things properly, we are too, and we're learning how to love. And many of us will say, well, what is love? And that's the perfect question. Always ask that with Father. Say, what is love? Teach me what your definition of love is, not my own, and teach me how to do it. Because love does bring peace. It brings a higher quality of life. So I wanted to share some places in Scripture that kind of give us an idea of what can happen when we do things from not a full place of loving God with our whole heart and loving our neighbors ourselves. And I came up with just a few of them that I thought I would go over and share with you. And you're welcome to make comments as we go along. The first one is Ananias and Sapphira. So in Acts chapter 5, starting actually in verse 4, I'm going to read the story. Could I move a little to the left? Your right looks like one of the butterflies landed on your head. Let go. Here, shall I, let's take it off and see if that works for now. Put it over here. Does that feel better? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that feedback. All right, here we go. All right, so speaking of Ananias and Sapphira, when you go to Acts, we're going to go back a little bit further with this and go just before we get to Ananias and Sapphira, what was happening during that time. There was a large group of those who believed, and you know, it was persecution back then. Yeshua had died, and after Yeshua had died and was resurrected, then of course the apostles were left, and the church went into was in persecution, went into more persecution. But there was a strong group of people, and there were miracles happening and healings happening, and there were many people coming into the faith during that time. So we're talking about that period. And it says, the large group of those who believed were of one heart and mind, and no one said that any of his possessions was his own, which of course we don't have today, but it sounds really beautiful. We always read this and go, oh, why can't we be like that? Yeah, I think we'll probably get to a place where we'll have to be like this again during persecution, but and during places that are persecuted, they do share more. But instead, they held everything in common. And the apostles were giving testimony with great power to the resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach. And great grace was on all of them, for there was not a needy person among them, because all those who owned lands or houses sold them, brought the proceeds of the things that were sold, and laid them at the apostles' feet. This was then distributed for each person's basic needs. Joseph, a Levite and a Cypriot by birth, the one of the apostles called Barnabas, which is translated son of encouragement, sold a field he owned, brought the money, and laid it at the apostles' feet. So this was a custom that they were doing right then, to take care of one another in the situations that were happening during that time. And then it goes into chapter 5, verse 1. But a man named Ananias and his wife Sapphira sold a piece of property. However, he kept back part of the proceeds with his wife's knowledge, and brought a portion of it and laid it at the apostles' feet. Then Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and to keep back part of the proceeds of the field? Wasn't it yours while you possessed it? And after it was sold, wasn't it at your disposal? Why is it that you plan this thing in your heart? You have not lied to men, but to God. When he heard these words, Ananias dropped dead, and a great fear came on all who heard. The young man got up, wrapped his body, carried him out, and buried him. There was an interval of about 3 hours when his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. Tell me, Peter asked her, did you sell the field for this price? Yes, she said, for that price. Then Peter said to her, why did you agree to test the Spirit of Jehovah? Look, the feet of those who have buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out. Instantly she dropped dead at his feet. When the young men came in, they found her dead, carried her out, and buried her beside her husband. Then great fear came on the whole church and on all who heard these things. Okay, this can be really scary, because you go, okay, so like, am I going to get judgment like right now, or what's going to happen? This was a time when the apostles who were working in power and leading the people, it was very clear that Jehovah was there to with the apostles to guide them and lead them, and it was during a different time than we have at the moment. I believe those times are going to come back. When you have prophets around and apostles that really are working in power, and you have been warned and you know the right way to do things, then there's a heavier punishment for knowing that strongly at certain times. So to keep things going. Now, one of the things that people don't catch in the story many times is that number one, this was already being done. What was happening, though, as far as giving, selling lands and giving all the proceeds to the apostles, was already being done. What was the difference with Ananias and Sapphira? The difference was is that they were trying to commit to giving all the proceeds of the land that they were going to sell to the apostles for the same purpose. And somewhere in the middle, there was a justification made that, you know what, we want to sell all of it. We want people to think that we've sold it all and or sold it for this price and given everything. So it was about something about wanting to look good to them, but holding some of it back for their own personal use. And there was nothing wrong with them selling a piece of land and keeping part of it for themselves and giving the rest in order to share among everyone else. There was no problem with doing that. They could have done that, and there wouldn't have been any problem. The problem is they tried to make it look like they were doing it like all the others were doing it and giving everything, and it was lying. So many times we kind of justify things. That's what happens when our hearts aren't completely on the idea of, doing loving acts when we have still some selfish reasons. So one of the selfish reasons that probably was there was they wanted to look good to others, like they were really fully part of the program, and they might have felt a little afraid or guilty that maybe they weren't doing that, so they were covering something up. So that can be something that can come down on you as a problem, and maybe I don't think you'll fall down dead from it, so don't don't hear me on that. I'm just saying there may be ramifications for that, and it's not full love. Our whole idea is to evaluate what's going on for us and the justifications we might be making that's holding us back from the fullness of what we can have in our relationships, because it really does affect our relationships with other people, with ourselves, and the guilt that we hold on to when we do things like that. And also, whenever we do things of this nature, it disconnects us from God, because God is full love. And so when you're feeling disconnected and you're trying to get connection, then we find places where we can improve so that we can have more connection and the possibility of healing of our lives, as well as more connection with God, because many people talk about how they don't feel so connected to God. So I have another one that gives us some examples of something to look at that can help us to see when we are not doing things fully. I mean, we can do really loving things, but not fully for the great reasons. Is in 1 Samuel chapter 18, talking about Saul and David, King Saul and King David. So we'll turn to 1 Samuel here. And of course, I have so many posts like this that you can go back with your own scriptures and kind of go over these for yourself. And it's a good thing to do, to be able to get this in for yourself and look at it thoughtfully and see if this functions. I don't always get it right, and there may be something that I'm missing. And so hearing other people talk about it is great, but reading it for yourself and sort of identifying with what might come up for you, of how you might be doing something similar, and ways that you can ask Father to help you to grow, and also some areas where you've probably not done it right, and that's probably created part of the issues that you're facing today, and maybe even your family is facing, or your community is facing, off of being that way. And by the way, we're all guilty of those things happening. So it's not a matter of like beating yourself up. It's a matter of just saying, okay, these are some areas that I can improve and make better. And Father's well pleased with that, because that's a teachable attitude, and he doesn't expect us to get it perfect. So just go ahead and practice and evaluate and keep practicing some more. So we know that Saul, he had quite a few problems. He sort of went pretty quickly into not wanting to please Father as much as the people that he was leading, and it created lots of problems. It looked like love in a sense, because he was trying to please the subjects now that he was king, but really it wasn't for the love of God. It was to be safe for himself and to make the people feel secure in him instead of act by faith. And sometimes faith has us do things that look very scary, like face giants, like fight. So that that happens. Sometimes we're told by faith to do things that don't make sense to men. Actually, I would venture to say it's more than sometimes. It has been in my life. Okay, so there's a lot of things here, but we'll start in 1 Samuel chapter 18. When David had finished speaking with Saul, they were talking about this is after killing, making a killing of the Philistines, um, and he did a valiant job, and taking Goliath's head, and he was supposed to be given. The agreement was that whoever would kill Goliath would get the hand in marriage of one of King Saul's daughters, and I was probably the firstborn at this point, and he did that. He did kill Goliath and a bunch of Philistines. When David had finished speaking with Saul, Jonathan committed himself to David and loved him as much as he loved himself. This is really beautiful. Love your neighbor as yourself. So this is a relationship that shows an amazing love that's really, really powerful example. And Saul and he loved him so much that he wasn't worried about being the next king. Jonathan was supposed to be the next king in line by kingly standards of King Saul, and then his son Jonathan would. And Jonathan didn't care about that at all. He loved David like himself and was very fine with David being the next king. There wasn't any problem. Saul kept David with him from that day on and did not let him return to his father's house. So he no longer tended the sheep and went back to Jesse at that time. Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as much as himself. Then Jonathan removed the robe he was wearing and gave it to David along with his military tunic, his sword, his bow, and his belt. So that's how much he just gave it all to him. Here, take it. I want you to know how much I love you and I respect you for what you've done for our nation, and that I hold you in high regard. So David marched out with the army and was successful in everything Saul sent him to do. So notice Saul sent him out to do it, and he put him in charge of all the army. Now this is important when we go later into the story of what happens. It pleased all the people and the servants, the Saul's servants as well, that he was made commander of the whole army. As the troops were coming back, when David was returning from killing the Philistine, the women came out from the cities of Israel to meet King Saul, singing and dancing with tambourines, with shouts of joy, and with three-stringed instruments. As they celebrated, the women sang, "Saul has killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s." Now, it was probably not the wisest thing to say to King Saul, because it says he killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s. It's probably not the wisest thing, but at the same time, it was the truth. That's what had happened. It was obvious that Jehovah was elevating, that whatever was put in the hands of David would succeed even more than Saul, because Saul had turned away from father being the most important thing in his opinion over the people. And Saul, with that jealousy and furiousness, he resented this song. And they credited, he said, they credited tens of thousands to David, he complained, but they only credited me with thousands. What more can he have but the kingdom? So Saul watched David jealously from that day forward. So why are we holding back? What are some of the emotions and things that we're doing? Are we trying to control ourselves? Control our safety? Are we trying to make ourselves look good? What's going on for us that maybe we don't do things from a full place of love? We might be too tired to care. And there as well, maybe there's something that can be done to push into Father and to slow down and to take care of ourselves properly, because he does expect us to take care of ourselves and care more, because it's really important. We are limited, and we do need his strength, and we do need rest. And I know it's really hard when you're when you're raising kids and everything else to do it. But you can. You can do it and just even little bits at a time, and Father will expand it and bless it as you use your time wisely, and get rid of things that maybe aren't a good use of your time, which puts you in places of maybe not making the best choices at times emotionally. So we know that an evil spirit the next day from God took control of Saul, and he began to rave inside the palace. And Saul was holding a spear and almost pinned David to the wall. He almost died. Like really, he had a spear coming after him by Saul. This is scary. I mean, Father does allow us to face some very scary things, and somehow he ducked and didn't get hit. Okay. Um, it says Saul was afraid of David because Jehovah was with David, but had left Saul. Therefore, Saul reassigned David and made him commander over 1,000 men. He got a demotion. He went from being a commander of the whole army to only 1,000 men. So sometimes when you're doing things correctly, it doesn't mean that Jehovah won't let things happen that look like it's going in the opposite direction for a while. So this happened to David. And yet David led the troops and continued to be successful in all his activities because Jehovah was with him. And when Saul observed that David was very successful, he dreaded him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he was leading their troops. And Saul told David, "Here's my oldest daughter, Merab. I'll give her to you as a wife, if you will be a warrior for me and fight the Lord's battles." But Saul was thinking, my hand doesn't need to be against him. Let the hand of the Philistines be against him. So I'll have him, I don't really want him to marry my daughter. I'm just saying that so that he will go after the Philistines, and in battle he's going to be toast. He's going to be killed, and I'll never have to live up to making him my son-in-law. That's what was really in King Saul's heart. So David had a very humble heart, and he said, "Who am I, and what is my family or my father's clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law?" Because that was a privilege, right? And he realized that he didn't come from the right stock or from the right breeding that should get that type of thought from a king. And Saul actually, when it was time, gave that daughter not to David, but to another man. And the story goes on talking about Saul's other daughter, Michal, loving David. And he did the same thing with that one, of saying, "Go to the Philistines, and if you get me like 100 foreskins of the Philistines, then you can have my daughter in marriage, and that will be the dowry that you give for her." And so he went and got 200 foreskins. But you can see that Saul's heart wasn't pure love. It was all about what he looked like and how people respected him. So what happens when we don't do things from a place of full love is we start making justifications in our heart of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it kind of comes at us slowly at a time to where we're searing our conscience without even knowing it, to a point where we don't really know when we're doing right and wrong any longer. The Spirit stops speaking to us if we don't pay attention. When we get a hardened heart to doing things the way Father says, He lets us go ahead and create from that place misery for ourselves and for other people. And maybe you will live a better life, but that misery and the consequences will go down to your next generations, to your children, and your children might have to deal with the things that you've done. So to a certain degree, of course, we all have things, we're all not perfect, but Father, just like David, He's not looking for perfection in the sense that you're able to be perfect. He's looking for a teachable heart, one that's willing to say, "I was wrong, I'm sorry, I could have done that better. That wasn't completely the way, I probably did some good there, but as well as I have some things to clean up and work on, and I need help. And Father, please help me, and I want to be better." having an open heart like that is what he's looking for. So I want to bring it up because I know for me, I thought that many of the things that I did a lot of acts that looked loving growing up, for instance. I did a lot of them. And I tend to, over my life, I have tried to do things that I don't like doing, believing that it's really important to not let my flesh tell me what to do, but to overcome my flesh by doing things that I don't like doing. And part of that was to become perfect. It was coming from a perfectionistic place. And why do we have a perfectionistic place? Well, it's usually to be safe for ourselves. It usually has to do something with trying to get safety for ourselves or get credit for something, to get elevated, to not get hurt so much. There's many reasons we can do it. But when we do it from those places, we're still not doing it from a full place of love. It's not really for the love of God and the love of neighbor. It's taking care of numero uno. So we can make it look like we're doing all these loving acts, and they are loving. They're the appropriate acts to be doing, but doing them from the wrong heart for the wrong reasons. And you don't get any credit for that. And it does lead to justifications that make it harder and harder to get out of the hole and makes a life more difficult with misery. So these are some things I've learned, and that's why it's so important to slow down and to really learn how to breathe and be thoughtful in what you're doing and why you're doing it. Those that worship me must worship me in spirit. The heart of what you do is as important as the truth that you know to do it in. And so I know myself, I still have a ways to go. I'm still learning and growing in order to be able to do it better. And I know Father will continue to help me, and I'm willing to be teachable. I'm willing to recognize when I've injured people, and doing so, taking what, instead of having it agreed upon, to really be in faith that I can be limited and Father can be unlimited, and I can take time off for myself, and I don't have to justify it. I can do it because Father expects me to take care of myself. Uh-oh. Let's see if we can get this back. Oh, good. You can still hear me. Well, okay, I'll just keep talking then. Thank you for telling me, Felicia. That helps a lot. So we're going to have to work on the internet and see if we can get a little stronger here. I didn't expect it to go down like this, but so we can go into it's an ugly mugshot it stopped at. That's funny. So we can go into evaluating. So I'm gonna spend some time and just ask Father in prayer for myself to go ahead and help me to know those areas that I still need to grow in and that I might not be getting it right, and ask for help, and kind of go into that evaluation for the rest of the week. See what comes up. I'm sure it will be very interesting, and I'll grow from it. So for those who would like to be included in this prayer, I'm glad you can hear me. I'm going to pray for all of us now, including myself. And thank you so much for coming. If you have any comments, feel free to go ahead and keep giving the comments, and I'll give you last minute things that you can say what you would like to say before we close up. Father, I thank you, Father, for this time. I thank you and praise you that you gently help us to see things that we can do better, and gently move us towards being able to color within the lines of what love is and how to love properly. And I just praise you that you're just such a genuine, loving Father. You're not there with trying to just look over us and wait for us to make a mistake and try to put us down and try to hurt us. You're wanting to guide us and direct us gently and with patience and help us to get it better, because what you're telling us to do is helping us to be able to be healthier for ourselves and for other people, and not hurt ourselves or other people. And that's really important. So, Father, I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity for us to learn how to live together in peace and to be nice to one another, both inside and out, and learn how to play in this playground of life that you've given us, this beautiful gift of life that you've given us, in a way where we're not creating hell any longer for one another, but that we can start to be better to be around and have others that are better to be around. And Father, just give us the strength when the rest of the world is not playing this game. Give us the strength to be able to stay on this game of loving you with our whole heart and doing what we do for you, and whatever our hand finds to do it for you, and to carry on in the purification that it takes in a world that does not want to do the same. I thank you for this time, and I ask you to bless all of us, Father, in evaluation, maybe this week as we pray, Father, and maybe once an hour set an alarm of how we could have done better in the last hour, and how we can improve in the next hour, and just be able to see what our general things of healing needs to happen. I ask for healing, Father, in the areas of the heart that we need it, in order to be able to handle changing from being anything like Ananias and Sapphira, or anything like King Saul, or like Laban was with Jacob, of taking advantage of Jacob. Even though Laban was giving him a job and giving him wives, he did it in a way that was underhanded. So help us to not justify, help soften our hearts so that the conviction is real. It's not a false conviction of justification or getting angry with you, but being grateful that you help us to be more loving. Thankfully, thank you, Beautiful, for your kind comments. It's nice to see you here. I praise you in Yeshua's name. Amen. Ah, this is great. Look at all these people. Wonderful to have you. Is there anybody that has any last comments before we go ahead and close for the evening? I will let those know that want to. Feel free to leave comments. Love your comments. It's helping me to see what new things I might talk on that can encourage you on your path. And I just am really excited. I'm really excited about all of you being here with me and growing with me on the narrow path. So continue to stay with me and share with me what's working and what's not working. And let's grow up together. Let's learn how to be one body, and learn how to be a blessing to one another, and be healthier, and share that light that Father wants to shine through us. Let that light burn purity in us and shine through us, so that other people might be able to have the faith as well, through our example and through our peace and happiness that comes from doing these things. And I hope I've encouraged you onto good works for tonight. All right, blessings to you all. I am going to say good night. Bye.